The night before the audition, the boy lay awake on a thin mat spread across the concrete floor of their one-room home. The ceiling fan rattled as it spun, pushing warm air around but offering little comfort. His stomach ached with the familiar emptiness that had become his nightly companion. Dinner had been a small bowl of rice shared among too many people, and he had quietly taken the smallest portion, pretending he wasn't hungry. He did that often. Hunger, to him, was not a crisis anymore, it was routine. Still, as he stared at the dark ceiling, his hand resting on the cheap guitar beside him, he whispered a prayer. Not for fame, not for money, just for one chance, one song, one moment to be heard. His name was Mateo. He was 14 years old, born in a coastal village in the Philippines where the sea gave beauty but little security. His father had been a fisherman, leaving before dawn and returning after sunset, hands cracked with salt and rope burns. When storms came, the sea took away work, and sometimes it felt like it took away hope too. Mateo's mother sold vegetables at a roadside stall, waking even earlier than his father to prepare what little they had to sell. There were days when they earned just enough to eat, and days when they didn't. Mateo learned early how to read silence, the kind that filled a house when parents worried but tried not to show it. Music entered his life not as a dream, but as an escape. The guitar had been his uncle's, its wood chipped and strings rusted, but to Mateo it was treasure. At night, after chores were done and his younger siblings slept, he would sit by the window and play softly, letting the sounds drift into the darkness. He learned by listening. Old radio songs, borrowed phones, anything he could find. He didn't know music theory. He didn't know scales. He only knew how it felt when a melody carried him somewhere far away from hunger, far away from worry. When the announcement came that auditions for a famous talent show would be held in Manila, it felt unreal. America's Got Talent was something he had only seen in clips, grainy videos watched on shared devices, people stepping onto a massive stage and leaving transformed. He never imagined it could be for someone like him. But his mother saw something different when she watched him sing. She saw her son forget the world. She saw his shoulders straighten, his eyes close, his voice steady in a way nothing else in his life was. So she sold a bracelet she had saved for years, a simple piece of jewelry but one tied to memories, to pay for the bus fare. The journey to Manila took nearly a full day. Mateo clutched his guitar case as if it might disappear if he let go. The city overwhelmed him. The noise, the crowds, the towering buildings. Outside the audition venue, hundreds of hopefuls lined up, each with their own story, their own dreams. Mateo felt small. He felt invisible. He wore the same worn shirt he always wore, shoes with thinning soles. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if this was foolish? What if he embarrassed himself? His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since the night before. Inside, the waiting room buzzed with nervous energy. Some people warmed up their voices, others paced back and forth. Mateo sat quietly, guitar resting against his knee. A volunteer offered snacks, and when one was placed in his hand, he hesitated, then accepted it with a shy smile. It wasn't much, but it eased the ache enough for him to focus. He closed his eyes and imagined his village, the sound of waves, his siblings' laughter. He imagined singing not to impress, but to survive. When his name was called, his legs felt weak. He walked down a long hallway that led to the stage, each step echoing in his ears. Bright lights flooded his vision as he emerged, and for a split second, fear threatened to silence him. The judges sat before him, faces he recognized from countless videos. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. The audience murmured, curious, expectant. "Hello," one of the judges said gently. "What's your name?" "Mateo," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "And how old are you, Mateo?" 14, sir." They asked about his life, and he answered honestly. About his family, about the village, about singing at night when the world was quiet. When asked why he was there, he paused, searching for words that could carry the weight of his truth. "I sing because, when I sing, I don't feel hungry," he said softly. "I don't feel scared. I feel like I matter." The room grew quiet. Simon leaned forward, his expression shifting. "What are you going to sing for us?" Mateo took a breath. "A song that helped me believe I could be more than where I come from." He adjusted the guitar strap, fingers trembling slightly as they found the strings. The first chord rang out, clear and steady. Then he began to sing. His voice was not loud, but it was pure. It carried a rawness that couldn't be taught, shaped by nights of loneliness and days of resilience. Each note seemed to come from somewhere deep inside him, a place where pain and hope intertwined. The lyrics spoke of longing, of dreams deferred but not destroyed, of a heart that refused to give up even when the world offered little in return. As he sang, something shifted in the room. The audience leaned in, breath held. The judges exchanged glances, surprised by the depth coming from such a young voice. Simon's eyes softened, his usual sharpness replaced by something else, recognition, perhaps, of a truth he had seen many times but never stopped respecting. Matteo closed his eyes as he reached the chorus, pouring everything he had into those few moments. He sang of hunger, not just for food, but for dignity, for opportunity, for a future that felt possible. His fingers pressed harder against the strings, the guitar almost an extension of his body now. When the final note faded, there was silence. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the audience rose to their feet, applause crashing like a wave. Matteo's eyes snapped open, disbelief washing over his face. He stood frozen, unsure what to do, tears blurring his vision. The sound was overwhelming, louder than anything he had ever experienced. One judge wiped her eyes. Another shook his head in amazement. Then Simon stood. "I've heard thousands of auditions," Simon said, his voice steady but emotional. "And most of them want fame. Most of them want success. But you sang because you needed to. And that's why it mattered." Matteo's hands trembled as he held his guitar. He nodded, unable to speak. Simon continued, "I don't think you understand what just happened. You reminded everyone in this room why music exists. It's not about perfection. It's about truth." He paused, then reached forward and slammed his hand down on the golden buzzer. The sound echoed through the theater, and golden confetti erupted from above, raining down in a shimmering storm. Matteo gasped, dropping his guitar slightly as he looked around, eyes wide with shock. The audience roared even louder, cheers mixing with applause, some people openly crying. Matteo covered his mouth, tears spilling freely now. He fell to his knees, overwhelmed, as the golden light surrounded him. For the first time in his life, the world felt impossibly generous. The judges rushed to the stage, embracing him, telling him he had earned this moment. Backstage, as the confetti settled, Matteo sat quietly, still shaking. A producer handed him water, another wrapped a jacket around his shoulders. His mother, watching from a screen miles away, wept uncontrollably, neighbors gathering around her in the small village, cheering as if victory belonged to all of them. That night, Matteo didn't sleep on a concrete floor. He stayed in a hotel room, soft bed beneath him, food delivered to his door. He ate slowly, savoring each bite, not out of greed but disbelief. The hunger he had known all his life felt distant, replaced by a cautious hope. He held his guitar close as he slept, afraid that if he let go, the dream might slip away. In the days that followed, his story spread. News outlets called him the boy who sang hunger into hope. People shared his audition, commenting on his voice, his humility, his courage. Donations poured into his village, enough to repair boats, support schools, feed families. Matteo watched it all with quiet awe, never forgetting where he came from. But the greatest change was inside him. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future not defined by scarcity. He practiced harder than ever, not because he felt pressure, but because he felt gratitude. Each note became a promise, to his family, to his younger siblings who looked at him like a hero, to himself. When he returned home briefly before the live shows, the village greeted him like a miracle. Children followed him, asking him to sing. Elders clasped his hands, pride shining in their eyes. Matteo stood on the same ground where he had once felt invisible, realizing that nothing had changed, and everything had. He still slept hungry some nights, because change doesn't come all at once. But now, hunger no longer meant hopelessness. It meant a reminder of where he started, a fuel that drove him forward instead of holding him back. On the world's biggest stage, Matteo had done more than sing a song. He had told his story, and in doing so, he had changed his life forever.